If you're an American, you may have been watching the State of the Union address last night. Now, it's possible that you watched the president and you're excited for the direction the country is moving in, or maybe you're still a little concerned. I don't know. I can't tell you. I don't know how you feel about that. But one thing I can say for sure is the Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, gang. Jeff McAleer once again, and I am the host here at the Daily Dope, as well as the Grand Poobah of the GamingGang.com. And this week we are sponsored by the wonderful folks over at Adventure a Week Games, and I will talk about them in just a little bit. Anyway, if you have not joined me in the past, or if you're watching live, just want to make sure that you do know there is chat available. It's just not on screen. It is available through Twitch as well as YouTube. So feel free to chime in. I've got quite a bit going on today. It is Wargame Wednesday. I tend to look at different war games, talk a little bit about war games on Wednesday, as well as provide some news that's cooking as far as tabletop gaming and comics, movies, so on and so forth. News is a little slim today, so that's okay, because I am going to be reviewing This War of Mine, the board game from 11-Bit Studios and Galakta Games. And this has been out for a bit. It has taken me a bit of time to get this reviewed, and got a lot of thoughts about it. So stay tuned for that. And I have done the best I can with the limited real estate as far as I put this down, as far as the board itself to show off This War of Mine. And I will point out, too, that I am not going to go into a highly detailed breakdown of the game. By now, there are plenty of websites out there that have kind of discussed this. And there's another reason why, and I will get to it as I discuss the game, why it's probably not a great idea to actually dive into a lot of the goings-on with This War of Mine, the board game. Not bad, I'm just saying there's reasons, there's a method behind my madness, and I will mention that when I get to the review. So, I will point out that if you were swinging by today, I had mentioned yesterday that I was going to take a look at the expansion for Wing Leader from GMT Games, Blitz, 1939 to 1942. Unfortunately, once I laid everything out and adjusted the camera to try to see what I can get in for This War of Mine, there is absolutely no space for me to show this off. So what I'm going to do is I will show it off next Wednesday for sure. I might do it before then, but for sure I will take a look at this on next Wednesday's Daily Dope. And I did want to offer this as a giveaway. So I am going to run that giveaway for 2 weeks. And I'm going to make it easy for you. As long as you're a subscriber on YouTube and you comment whatever comment you want, please try to make it nice though. You can comment on this video or next Wednesday's video. Next Wednesday's edition of the Daily Dope. Feel free, just leave a comment, and you will be in the running to win the expansion for Wing Leader. I will mention it's probably a good idea that you own the game or you have plans on purchasing the game, because as it stands, just as an expansion, there won't be much you can do with it. Anywho, so there is some news today. Before I jump into that, I did want to mention a couple of quick things. And one is, yes, I am wearing glasses again. All week long, I think I'm just going to wear glasses. Give my eyes a break from the months and months of wearing contacts. So I do apologize for the glare that you're getting from the various lights and different screens pointing at me. So I do apologize for that. And as far as my crack to open up the show about the State of the Union, yeah, it is what it is. I'm not here to talk politics. I think people already know that I'm, bleeding heart liberal for most things. Not everything, but anywho. So as far as the news today, I really only have 3 news pieces, and there were some items that had popped up that I sort of thought, I mean, seriously, do we really need to talk about another Reiner Knizia design that's been recycled umpteen times, getting a new skin, a new theme? I don't think so. That's just me. And there is an item in the mailbag that I'll get to after the news that will kind of address that whole reskinning, retheming kind of games I like. Anyway, so let's move into the news quickly enough. There was a Kickstarter, I shouldn't say was, there is a Kickstarter that sort of caught my interest, and it's going on right now. It's about midway through its Kickstarting run, and it's from 2 Hour Wargames, and it's a miniatures game. It's a science fiction miniatures game, and it is looking kind of interesting. And I've heard great things about 2 Hour Wargames. I just have never played one. I did have a correspondent who used to do some reviews for the Gaming Gang, and they were big fans. And I believe they did a couple of reviews of those titles. Anyway, I have the dope about this Kickstarter. And it is 5150, and I guess it's part of a new series. Anyway, here's the scoop, or I should say dope, from 2 Hour Wargames. Listen up, newbie. I know what you unwarranted high regard for yourself recruits call our enemy bugs. A bug is something very small you see crawling on the ground, something insignificant that you can step on and keep doing whatever you're doing. I got news for you. That's not what these bugs are. We're going down into the tunnels looking for real bugs. When you meet one face to face, try not to wet yourself and pray to whatever God you believe in that you get out alive. Because to them, we're the insignificant ones. All right, enough for my bad acting. 2 Hour Wargames has partnered with Atchison Creations to bring you 5150 Bugs into the Tunnels, the first of our 3 5150 Kickstarters. Into the Tunnels is a complete game playable with our 15mm scale pewter minis and resin tunnel sections. Our tabletop games are playable in, amazingly enough, 2 hours or less, thus the name of the company. All of our games can be played solo or same side cooperatively, as well as head-to-head against your friends. Inside, you'll find complete rules covering 5 types of bugs: warrior, worker, flyer, puker, and brain. A tunnel building system that allows you to construct a wide variety of tunnels where no two are exactly alike. 10 different scenarios that are linked together, building your story. Army lists for the Star Army, Star Marines, and Planet Defense Force. Simple campaign rules that tie your missions together, giving you a reason to play with little bookkeeping. Easy yet realistic rules allowing you to play solo or cooperatively against the game or head-to-head against your friends. All of this and much more. I do have a video for the Kickstarter, and I have cranked the volume down quite a bit because it gets pretty loud. There's no voiceover, just a lot of swarming bug sounds. I don't know. But I do want to share the video because it is going to show off some of the miniatures that are part of the Kickstarter. So let's take a peek. Looks fairly interesting, I must say. I would say that it's probably right up the alley for folks who really dig Starship Troopers. Uh-oh. Pinky has arrived down here and doing her usual carrying on. Hello, Pinky. Yeah. Dunno. Oh, there you go. She's chiming in. So we've got a guest star. I should also mention that if you ever see the camera pointed at me kind of tremble a little bit, that's Smokey, the other cat. She's usually down here roaming around. Sometimes she's on my lap, and she loves to rub up against that tripod. Anyway, back to 5150 Bugs into the Tunnels. You can get the print edition and the PDF for a $20 pledge level and unlock miniatures to go along with those rules beginning at the $50 pledge level. I will point out that this has not been funded yet. It's about 50% of the way to its funding, and the goal is not very big. It's only, what was it, $2,500? So I sort of have the feeling that the backers are kind of looking at picking up the rules, but maybe not the miniatures. I don't know, but it does look pretty interesting, so I did want to share that news with you. Also, if you're looking to save some dough, and I am always keeping my eyes peeled for some great deals, freebies that are going to appeal to the gamers out there, I have the latest bundle of holding, and yes, it is for the hit German RPG, thankfully it's in English, The Dark Eye. And I've got the dope from Bundle of Holding. Adventurer, our fellowship from Dragon Egg Academy brings you the Dark Eye Bundle, featuring the English language edition from Ulysses Spiel North America, of the leading German tabletop role-playing game of heroic fantasy. The Dark Eye is Germany's premier fantasy role-playing game in continuous publication for more than 30 years. As a heroic adventurer on the island continent of Adventura, Adventures on Aventura, you'll rebuild the war-weary Middle Realm, marvel at the lands of the Ptolemaides, discover lost ruins in steaming jungles, or drive back the evil of the Shadowlands. Rescue innocent victims from cults of the Nameless One. Oh yes, you don't want to say their name. Navigate the intrigues at the court of the Empress, or defend border cities from the Orc Storm. Ulysses funded new English translations of the much of the Dark Eye product line in a spectacular May 2016 Kickstarter campaign. Now, this bargain price offer gives you everything you need to explore and Aventura. A rich and believable setting inspired by Europe's medieval lore, forbidding landscapes, and fairy tale castles. For just $9.95, you get all 4 titles in the Player Collection, which carries a retail value of $42.50 as DRM-free PDF ebooks. You'll get the complete full-color 418-page The Dark Eye Core Rulebook, as well as the free Quick Start rules, plus the Aventura Almanac, Aventura Map Set, and character sheets. Not a bad deal for less than $10. And if you pay more than the threshold price of $21.53, you'll level up and also get our entire Game Master collection, with 6 more supplements and adventures worth an additional $44, including the Aventurian Bestiary, the full-length introductory scenario, Revelations from Heaven, and 3 short Heroic Works adventures, a goblin, more or less, something I am not even going to try to pronounce as Kibakabagubadaba, and the Molted Serpent, plus the Dark Eye Game Master's screen with its accompanying Inns and Taverns booklet. I do want to point out that while you're saving money scoring some great RPG action, you're also going to be helping charities. That's right, because 10% of your payment after payment gateway fees will be split evenly between the two charities chosen by the Dark Eye publisher, Doctors Without Borders and the German children's home Barenhers. Barenhers? I think maybe it's Barenhers. Aha. So I have heard some really, really good things about the Dark Eye over the years. And European role-playing games are pretty unique. They're usually quite a bit different than what we see here in North America. And yeah, maybe it's just, different culture kind of thing. But like Shadows of Esteren. Yeah, it is. I think it's Esteren. The French role-playing game. Very, very interesting. And I have heard the same thing about the Dark Eye. And one of the things is it just hadn't been translated into English. So the popularity over in Germany had not carried over here to the US. Now it has. So you can snag the first 4 items for $9.95 and help charities. Come on, you can't beat that. It's awesome. All right, my third news piece is actually, I don't have anything set up as far as little images and stuff like that. Mainly because ConSimWorld does not have a big logo image that I could plug in. All the images are pretty small. But I do want to point out that ConSimWorld is in the midst of their latest kind of pledge drive. And I've got the dope from John Krantz. CSW is celebrating its 22nd year in supporting the wargame community. We are grateful to be a valued resource and are celebrating a record year in which we nearly doubled all previous records by posting more than 3,200 news stories in 2017, thanks to our news aggregator site. Our social network and forum is at an all-time high in both membership and visitor traffic. We couldn't be more pleased with our growing community and ongoing commitment to support your gaming pursuits. Now more than ever, without you, we wouldn't accomplish anything. That's why we graciously request your support to keep going. By donating $10, $25, or more dollars, you empower us to continue supporting the wargaming community. I will point out that as far as what you get for helping to support ConSimWorld is the print and play games. There's one that's specifically created just for this pledge drive, basically, and it's from High Flying Dice Games. And at different support levels, you'll get different discounts from different companies and things like that. So I am not necessarily one to sit here and talk about, hey, you should go to this other website and support this other website while I'm pinching pennies. But ConSimWorld, especially for wargamers who are out there, and I know there are quite a few wargamers who pop in on Wednesdays to see what's cooking. There aren't a whole lot of places that you can get some good, solid wargaming news, conflict simulation news. And ConSimWorld, even though it's not the prettiest website around and maybe not the most intuitive forum around, is jam-packed with info, opinion. It is really a go-to place if you are into war games or conflict simulations whatsoever. Saying that, John Krantz also happens to be one of the nicest people you're ever going to run across in the hobby. I had the opportunity to cover ConSimWorld Expo, which is held yearly in Tempe, Arizona, back when I lived out in Arizona. And I swear, John is he's a sweetheart. Super, super nice. And the interesting thing that I find is John's really not a huge gamer. At least at the time when I was talking to him, he wasn't. But just the joy that he would have at ConSimWorld Expo, just as everybody was coming in, having a good time. He's always hanging around at kind of the check-in area, and really cool individual. So by all means, if you like war games, conflict simulations, anything like that, you already know about ConSimWorld. Help them out, keep them around. You know, a lot of people don't realize that there are many websites out there that you go to daily, you enjoy, yeah, maybe not daily, but you go to quite a bit, you enjoy the content, and they're just hanging on by a thread. So you don't miss what you have until it's gone, right? So anyway, all right, so I just wanted to toss it out there. Be sure to swing on over to ConSimWorld and lend your support. And if you never heard of it, you like war games, or you want to be introduced to some war games, it's a great place to go. Really good. Of course, you know, the forums, like everywhere, 99% of the people are cool and 1% are kind of like, ugh. All right, so that is pretty much it for the news. Like I said, not a whole lot exciting going on. I did want to dip into the mailbag though, and if you notice, there's a little link down there. So if you have a question, comment, suggestion, anything like that about either the Daily Dope or the Gaming Gang, you can by all means shoot me a quick email. And if it's a good question or if it's a topic that's pretty interesting, I will definitely address that. So anyway, so I got an email from Bill down in Knoxville, Tennessee, and they were curious, he, I should say, was curious, what kind of games do I not like? Yeah, well, okay, so I would hope that most people who watch various different board game, tabletop game videos and visit different gaming websites understand that people who do reviews and so on and so forth, we have games that we really enjoy. There's niches, there's genres that we tend to like, there's certain mechanics that we tend to enjoy, and then there's others that may not really float our boats. So as far as games that I don't like, now I'm not going to necessarily name specific titles because that'd be rude, but I have made it known over the, well, we're in our 8th year of the Gaming Gang, that I'm not always the biggest Euro gamer. And the reason why, and I'm not knocking that sort of game, because there are Euro games that I really do dig. But there are games that utilize some Euro style mechanics. And some Euro games which are kind of puzzly almost, sort of everything's kind of rinse and repeat every turn, every round, whatever. Those leave me kind of flat. I'm not a big fan of games that are very abstract. I like to have some theme to my games, and the theme doesn't have to be dripping in theme. But I do like to have something where it's sort of like, oh, well, there's a little story. This game's kind of telling a story, even if it doesn't tell a story. Right, so a Euro game that I like, or I should say Euro-style game, because I hate the term Ameritrash. So if I say Euro game, then the flip side of that, everybody assumes is is Ameritrash. I almost said Eurotrash. I wouldn't say that either. So a Euro-style game, and you've got an American-style game. Let's say that. But I was going to say that. Say like a game like Stone Age. Now we're going back a little bit. I like Stone Age because, yes, of course, it's got all those Euro mechanics in it, but there's sort of a story there that you kind of put together in your head. Things that are just very abstract, like I said, a lot of times they're kind of puzzly. I'm not a huge fan. Other sort of game that I'm not overly keen on, well, okay, so I don't like most party games simply because most party games stink. Let's be honest, they sort of do, because party games are normally aimed at non-gamers. So, because it's a party game, back in the day, people had parties. You didn't have a bunch of gamers, like gamers. People were like, yeah, we're playing D&D next weekend and busting out some Avalon Hill. No, I mean, so party games kind of fall in that category. Now there are party games out there that I really like. Word on the Street is one. Obviously, of course, I've talked about it umpteen times. Wits and Wagers, the various variations of Wits and Wagers, really enjoy that. So not every party game leaves me flat. And then finally, the last sort of game that I'm not a big fan of are games that sort of play you don't play it. I'm not really big on games that are always you're reacting to something the game throws out there. Now, this isn't always the case, and I know a lot of people are like, geez, Jeff, come on. You talk about how you're not a huge fan of Pandemic, and I'm not. I mean, I haven't played the legacy titles, but to me, Pandemic is a game where you're always reacting to what's going on. Now, on the flip side of that, somebody could say, well, hey, you really like Hot Shots from Fireside Games. That's you're reacting to what's going on with the wildfire. Yes, but I feel like I've got more control over what's going on. So, yeah, but I like a lot of different games. I am more than willing to play anything, is how I kind of look at it. And a lot of times I'll see a game where I think, I don't know, that doesn't look all that exciting. But I will play it and then suddenly be like, wow, I'm really surprised how much I enjoyed that game. Let's play that again. So, anyway, I just wanted to kind of, once again, I'm always kind of rambling on. But I did want to address Bill's question about the sort of games that I don't care for. That's why you won't see reviews of stuff like, and I'm not picking on Reiner Knizia, but it seems like, he got into the whole pattern of, well, he had designed all these different games, and then he was just, they went out of print, so now and sometimes they weren't out of print. All it was just a re-theme, kind of a re-skinning of a game, same exact game. Yeah, see, no, it's not my bag of tricks. Although I do understand through the grapevine that Reiner has been doing more new stuff as opposed to just rehashing the same designs from the past. So that's cool. That's cool to hear. I hear he's a really nice guy. That's why I'm not trying to pick on Reiner Knizia. People don't make tons of money in the board game industry anyway, so whatever, wherever you can make a few bucks here and there, as long as, it's legitimately done, I have no problem with it. All right, so before I move into my review of this war of mine, I do want to mention our sponsor this week. Yes, that's right, because all week long, which is also coinciding with you saving a lot of money on their products, Adventure a Week is actually our sponsor. So I had recently done a review of Snow White. I talked about that a couple weeks ago. I talked about it a little bit yesterday. It was fantastic. If you are a fan of Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, Starfinder, or, I gotta be honest, just about any other fantasy or science fiction role-playing game, you really, really need to take a peek at all the great gaming goodness that is coming out from AdventureAweek.com. You really, really want to see what AAW Games has cooking. Now, tomorrow I am going to review Rise of the Drow, which is pretty awesome. I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I'm gonna tell you it's gonna get a very positive review. That's not without any flaws, don't get me wrong. But it is a massive tome. It is 470-ish pages of jam-packed goodness. And right now, you can get it for half off. That's right, because every PDF from Adventure a Week is available at Drive-Thru RPG for 50% off. Don't miss out. It is a great opportunity to score The newest item, I believe, is an adventure for Pathfinder. I believe that came out just a couple weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. You can score Snow White for $15. You can get Rise of the Drow for $15. You got to take advantage of this sale. And the cool thing about this sale is it's going on through February 5th. I did not realize that when I started talking about Adventure a Week earlier this week. A little redundant there, right? And I was telling people, hey, don't miss out. Don't miss out. I don't know when this ends. So now I do know when it ends. It is February 5th. So be sure to go check out all the great offerings from Adventure a Week. If you want to get the print editions that are available, you can save 10% off of those. So, and as I mentioned, I will review Rise of the Drow on tomorrow's show. And as I said, and I have to point out, it'll be spoiler free. And I know that bothers some people out there that I do RPG reviews. And actually, this War of Mine review is going to be a little spoiler free too. And I know some people don't dig that, but to me, it's like if I tell you like everything that's going on, it's sort of like a movie, right? You don't want to know everything about a movie before you go see it. Where's the enjoyment as you experience it yourself for the first time? So, yeah, if you're into RPGs, if you like fantasy RPGs, swing by tomorrow. All right, last thing I wanted to mention before I jump into this War of Mine is I am wearing a Cubs jersey and my Cubs hat today because it is the late Ernie Banks' birthday. Yes, Mr. Cub himself. And I thought I'd celebrate a little bit by wearing, it's actually, it says McAleer on the back. So it's not like my Ron Santo jersey, you know. So I thought I'd change things up a little bit. And on a funny side note story, I met Ernie Banks umpteen times when I was a kid. My mom used to take my brother and I to Wrigley Field for like Ladies' Day, right? And I'll never forget, my mom would pack like egg salad sandwiches. Yeah, because that's what you want to bring in the summertime, right? To a ball game. But we would always be in the upper deck. So we would always be walking up. And I got to admit, it's got to be about 5 different times Ernie Banks would be hanging out and be like, hey, children, would you like me to sign your scorecard? And we go, oh, okay. And it was funny because, you know, as kids, Ernie Banks. Who's Ernie Banks? And it got to the point where we'd be like, oh, there's that guy again. There's that guy again. Yeah, sure, you can sign the scorecard, fine. Of course, now, I only wish I had those scorecards that were signed by Ernie Banks, you know? Anywho, all right, so I am going to switch over to the other camera here, and we're going to dive into this War of Mine. I've got things kind of scattered all over the place, so you're going to find me kind of reaching around to grab stuff. Okay, so what I have done here, and I do have to apologize, I'm getting glare over on this end here, and it's from the backlight. I apologize. I was messing around. I know I was even a couple minutes late today, and that was because I was trying to do what I could to eliminate some of the glare that's coming off here. And as you can tell, well, okay, so here's my hand. I'm going to lay my hand on the board. And yes, I pointed out before, I don't have huge hands, but the board is pretty darn large. And I have the camera way up there. Hello, everybody. To get this in. So I am going to have to kind of hold things up. It's going to be kind of weird. So anyway, I am not going to go through like a full playthrough or walk you through every single step of the game. I am just going to kind of talk about, oh, that's weird. This War of Mine reviewed on the Daily Dope is live, just popped up on YouTube. So that's a little strange. So I'm 30 some minutes into the show and people are now finding out Oh, hey, by the way. All right, whatever, YouTube. Okay, I know. I'm still messing around with this out of sync thing too. Um, Yesterday was much better. It seemed to be a little bit out of sync, and I'm trying to figure out what the reasoning is behind this. And I'm starting to believe that it's possible because any videos that are in 1080p or higher, they actually take the audio and video and they are separate, right? So they're separate. And I'm sort of thinking that it might be something to do with that when this renders. Because when I was doing just 720, I really didn't run into any big sync issues. So, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'm trying. I mean, I'm doing my best I can. I did once again do a quick private stream to see if it was in sync today, and everything's in sync. And then when it renders it, I don't know. And sometimes it's off. It's too early. Sometimes it's too late. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Well, that's how it goes. All right, so let me grab this here. Okay, so this war of mine is based on the really, I don't want to say hit. I mean, it is a hit. Don't get me wrong. It has sold millions and millions of copies. The PC game, well, now it's also available as an app too. And it is designed by, I believe it's pronounced Mikhail Oratz and Jacob Wisniewski. And it is from 11-Bit Studios and Galakta Games. And it is released here in the US, or I should say probably North America, through Ares Games. And if you are not familiar with I'm going to say PC game because that's how I've always played it. I always played it on PC. So if you're not familiar with the computer game, what it is there's a civil war going on, and the players in the board game, the players are going to maneuver, I guess I will say, citizens who are caught in the middle of this civil war. So what has happened, the rebels occupy the city and the government forces have laid siege to this city. There is at no point anything saying, well, the rebels are in the rights, the government is in the rights, because that really doesn't matter to the citizens, because all these people are trying to do is to survive and make it to the next day. And hopefully, eventually get to a point where there is a ceasefire and the folks who are trapped in this city are going to be able to hopefully flee. This is a game that is not going to be for everyone. I'm going to point that out right away. It is, it can be pretty gruesome and horrific. And that's one of the reasons why I thought, well, I'm going to do the review on a War Game Wednesday. And the reason for that is, and there's a weird misconception that people who play war games and conflict simulations are warmongers and that's not really the case. And I'm sure there's a few people out there like that, don't get me wrong. But for the most part, many of us are really, really heavily invested in history. We know why our country, for an example, is the way it is because of all the things that have happened in the past. Unfortunately, many people out there, especially younger folks these days, their attitude is, well, if it happened and I wasn't born yet, who cares? It doesn't matter. I wasn't here. Well, it does matter. It matters a lot, because if something had been different in history, it's very possible that you wouldn't be here. So anyway, this is not a game that you're going to bust out with the children. This is not a game that you're probably going to look to play with preteens. There is a reason why it's really recommended for a mature audience. And part of the reason is that you're looking at trying to have these characters survive. And the choices that you will have to make are not going to be easy. They are not going to be fun, I guess I would say. And I find it interesting that just about anybody out there who, you know, into science fiction, horror, or anything like that, they can kind of imagine, hey, what would I do in a zombie apocalypse, right? And everybody has their ideas. Oh, yeah, zombie apocalypse, I would do this and that. And of course, I'm going to live. And the reality is, well, no, it's a zombie apocalypse for a reason. Because most people would end up being chowed down on by the Zeds. You know, that's how it would be. That's why it's an apocalypse. I know it's interesting and, you know, fun to think, oh, yeah, hey, I would be able to outrun everybody. I'm the first one to admit, if I wasn't in a secured location when a zombie apocalypse broke out, I don't see myself making it. And I mention this because a lot of people can imagine that. They can imagine, especially here in America, they can imagine, yes, okay, I've read the Max Brooks book, The Zombie Survival Guide. Yeah, I know all about. We can picture this. What we can't picture is we cannot picture being in a war zone where our home is under siege. I can't imagine it. I can't imagine the city of Chicago. A war breaks out, let's say XYZ country invades, and the city of Chicago is under siege. It's very difficult for Americans to imagine that. Now, many Europeans and people in many other regions of the world, they not only can imagine it, it's something that they've had to live through or are living through. So I mentioned that because, and I mentioned that this is not a game that you're not going to get grandma to the table to play this game. You just aren't. I can't recommend that. If grandma is, you know, kind of the, oh, let's play some Carcassonne, I wouldn't say, hey, mom, sit down, we're going to play this. So, all right. So anyway, and I will go into a little more detail about that too. There are quite a lot of interesting things going on with this War of Mine, the board game. And as I said, I'm not going to go into every single detail about it. Now, and unfortunately, I am zoomed way out too. So you're probably going to want to go full screen. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go around the table here. And yes, I know this portion, you can't see this portion over here because my mug is taking it up. But over here, we've got a locations deck, because there are going to be locations that I don't necessarily want to say survivors, because it's not some sort of supernatural event or anything like that. I mean, you know, they are survivors in this city, but I'll refer to them as civilians. Let's just say civilians. So we've got location decks because you'll send your civilians out at night to scavenge, because there is really no resources available to you that are directly on hand. And you're going to have to go out and try to find food and weapons and medicine. You may encounter people to trade with. You may, I shouldn't say may, you will run across other people who are doing anything they possibly can to be able to live to see another day. So we've got the different locations, and you're going to select 3 of these locations, and you're going to place them to the side here, and it's going to show where you can go to scavenge. And I just pulled these randomly And we've got a supermarket, which that's pretty good that it's nearby, because that is going to give us an opportunity, hopefully, to find food for our citizens. And I'm going to try to pop up here. Yeah, this is kind of weird how I have to hold it up. And then I'm looking down here. I'm looking at my screen to make sure that you can see it. And each of these locations, you'll notice down at the bottom, they have these circles with numbers. And those circles with the numbers are actually utilized in the kind of the storybook that comes with the game. And I'll show you that in just a sec, but I'm just kind of touring the board a little bit. As you're scavenging, you're trying to make sure that you're as quiet as possible. You don't want to draw attention to yourselves. And along the side of the board here is a track, and it's a noise track, and you will be drawing exploration cards when you're out scavenging, and some of these cards will say, okay, well, bump the noise track up so many, and then you have to roll a 10-sided die. And you're looking to roll higher than what the noise level is, because you don't, like I said, you don't want to attract unwanted attention to yourselves out there, because there are rebels floating around, there's soldiers floating around, there are other civilians who are hell-bent on just taking what they can. And an aspect of the game you also have to look at too is that you'll make decisions about, sometimes, you know, what you're taking from someone else. I mean, you're stealing from somebody else who needs whatever those items are just as much or more than your civilians do. There's lots of stuff, not that you wrap your head around, but that you have to think about. And this is a game that stays with you after you have played it. All right, so then we got the exploration deck down here. We got a residence deck. We've got a findings deck. And we've got a night raids deck. And exploration, I'll give you an example here. So it shows 14 cards will be drawn when you go and you're out there exploring, when you're out there scavenging. And the further away a place is, the fewer cards you get. Now, every one of these cards is not going to necessarily say, oh yeah, you get this, you find this, you find this. So you're going to draw the cards and you're going to just resolve them in order. And I'll kind of get to this in just a sec, but kind of give you an idea. So this is a reality impact. So the reality of the situation is hitting your civilians. Let's find some other ones. Okay, so you encounter bars that you would have to cut through. If you can cut through those bars with a saw blade, you're going to be able to get supplies. If not, well, you're going to be stuck. And there's a lot. Oh, there we go. And then there's like a hideout. Now, one thing I will point out, this isn't a huge deck. So you are going to end up going through, you're going to see some of the same cards, especially on repeated play. Obviously, that's going to happen. But the one interesting thing about this War of Mine is the locations are going to play a lot into what happens during your story. And there are quite a few locations. And as I mentioned, you've got that kind of create your own adventure book that's included with this. And let me grab that. Let me show you. It's the Book of Scripts. And there are over 1,000 entries in this. And you can read it. You'll see everything's numbered. So, and these circles down on the locations, they have color codes. It'll tell you to draw a color from the color deck. here. And you'll actually read the corresponding paragraph, or sometimes it's more than a paragraph. And as I mentioned before, there's some just terrible things going on in this, and there are unpleasant choices that your citizens will need to make. So this comes into play a lot. You're constantly using this. Now, one thing I'm going to mention is there is an app that's available for this War of Mine, the board game, and I highly recommend you download the app for your phone or tablet. And not necessarily because it's fine passing the book around to read the different entries, but there are rules in this book that, and this is one of the things that's going to throw off a lot of people out there. It's probably going to be a deal breaker for some people out there. The rule presentation of this War of Mine is not your standard board game presentation. And I will talk about that in just a sec. But I did want to show off the Book of Secret Scripts, and we will actually get back to this in a couple of moments. All right, so anyway, so we've got residents, and it's just showing, you know, things that you can run across rebels, you can run across rats, survivors, homeless. And early on, there are some tougher challenges that are both in the residents and the night raids that are taken out of these decks. As you continue with the game, they will be added in to these decks. And yeah, there are some seriously bad people that you're going to encounter. And then again, I mean, it's possible that your citizens are not going to be good people either. It's all based on, a lot of it is based on what you choose to do. So talking about some of the characters, there are a dozen characters that are included in this War of Mine, and each one will have a card. Now, it's possible for you to get other characters as part of your group. You can only have 4 at one time, and the characters can die off. I mean, it's not unusual to find that some of your citizens are not going to make it to the end of the game. You're going to see that really they don't have a ton of stats or anything like that. So you've got prowess, which is pretty much combat prowess. Then you have empathy. And empathy comes into play. Characters who have a higher empathy tend to not like when the group makes choices that are immoral or wrong, or what most people would think are doing the wrong thing. The lower the empathy, then the more ambiguous that character is about, well, stealing, hurting someone to get what they've got. Just strangely enough, I have 3 women as my citizens for this game. I just drew them randomly. You'll get 2 that are black border, 1 that is red border. And the characters will also have some special abilities as well. So, for an example here, Zlata is, her special ability is actually kind of making other people feel better. Especially if she has a guitar. Emilia is a lawyer, and like I said, I'll just kind of hold that there, make sure it kind of gets in focus there. So you'll see ABC, Katya, ABC. So those are some of the special effects that they can have. Now, interestingly enough, some of your citizens may be smokers, and if they can't get cigarettes, they start getting upset. It's possible that, you know, none of these people are perfect, is basically how it kind of boils down. So you'll have your characters, and each of these characters will be represented by a miniature. So there are 12 minis included in the game. Pretty nice sculpts. I did an unboxing for this War of Mine. It was a while back. So I give you a much better look at all the components. And this is jam-packed with stuff too. So you'll also see that there's a colored ring. That what you're going to do is you're just going to put the colored ring, and thankfully these rings pop off easily, not like some games you put a miniature in one of these rings and it's like good luck getting it back out, because you are going to need to swap these out depending on the characters that you draw or any character that joins your group. And you'll simply take a colored token and put it near your character. So Emilia here is blue, right here. So you would just have this near the character. I do want to point out that this is a cooperative game. It can be played solitaire as well. Nothing really changes playing solitaire. You just make all the decisions for the group. No one player is represented by a character, okay? It's important to keep in mind that no one is represented by one of these miniatures here, and that's a good thing, because it's you know, it's kind of upsetting when one of your citizens dies. So yeah, so of course there's no player elimination unless you have no citizens left to try to guide and protect. The building itself, you'll see here I've got furniture, rubble, closed door, furniture, heap, closed door, rubble. If I took these cards away, this side cutaway, people who've played this War of Mine, the computer game, will be very kind of familiar with seeing this. They're like, oh yeah, because it's all side scroll view. And what this area is here is this is effectively, these three people have found this location that they can kind of hole up in. And they have to go and try to find things throughout this house, because there may be different things that you can find throughout the house. So for an example, you got a closed door. As I try to pick that up. So the closed door requires a lockpick to get open. And then it tells you what you gain. These are all randomly placed, but there are really no extra cards. So for an example, like there's the 3 closed doors. Well, that's how many cards are in the deck of cards. So you're always going to run across whatever there is. It doesn't really affect playability, in my opinion. Replayability, I should say, because for crying out loud, it's a door. Same thing with the furniture, same thing with the heaps. And it's going to tell you what you need to do to be able to flip this card, to get what this has. So for an example, for rubble, if you find rubble, then somebody needs a shovel, one person needs a shovel, or you can place 2 characters to clear the rubble. There are very, very few things that you can assign more than one character to do. That is one. That is one thing. Then, for an example, we got the heap. And you're just going to follow the instructions on here. All right, let's put that back up here. So, along the top, we've got the Chapter 1, Chapter Objective, Visitors, Characters, the extra characters are over here. Sorry, I didn't pop them in their spot. So they would go there. Then you've got fittings, which are things that you can build. So you can build a bed. You can build a small stove. So there is that. There's a bit of crafting involved. You also have ideas, which are over here, which the ideas get added into your fitting It's like, oh, hey, I've got an idea. We could do this. You've got fate cards, you've got narrative action, you've got the colors, and the color deck is just simply the circles. So if you're taking a look at the cards here, okay, so that's black, that's blue, whoops, that's green, and you will encounter many things that'll tell you, okay, draw a card from the color deck. You're going to draw the one card, you're going to see what the color is. So for an example here, if we were doing exploration and we had to pull from the color deck and it said red, then we know we're going to read entry 79. Pretty easy. Then we've got our supply, so we've got storage. So anything that goes into here, because you'll have components and you'll have wood. And if you have 5 of one, you'll actually take one of your tokens. So this is a component. So if I had it down here in my storage, that would just count as one component. If I had it over here, that means I've got 5. You've got water. Everybody has to drink water every day. You've got food. This is raw food. Everybody has to eat every day. So our beginning equipment, we've got a lockpick, so we know we can get through one of the doors. And then we also have a shovel. And there are tons and tons. I got it over here. Like I said, I had to spread a lot of stuff out, so I'm reaching all over the place to grab some of these things. Because you are going to have a bunch of tokens that you're going to utilize. So in the middle, you see there's water. There are different states that your survivors, your citizens will have. So there's hunger, there's wounds, there's misery. Yeah, I'm telling you. So, excuse me. To kind of give you an idea. Oh, there's illness. And say, for an example, somebody has an illness level of 1. You're going to actually take this token and you're going to put it with the character. So, for an example, I know it's far out. You would put that up there. Okay, so you would put that on top of your character. There's fatigue, people get tired. There's all these things that you are going to have to juggle in this game to try to allow these people to survive. Examples of hunger level 1. Now you'll see these little white dots. These little white dots indicate how many actions that character is going to be able to perform during the daytime phase. So you see hunger level 1, oh, they're okay. I mean, they can still perform 3 actions. Now, when they get to hunger level 2, now they only get 2 actions. And all of these different states, you do not want to reach a level 4. And the reason is a level 4 usually will mean that that character is... So, and there's like, you'll have like a little epilogue on where it says, where it's a level 4, it's going to say read epilogue, and it's going to give you a number. One aspect of the game, and I kind of started getting into this, I think we've gone around, yeah, we've pretty much gone around the board, kind of show stuff off. So the game rules are not laid out as you would find with most board games. These rules are sort of along the lines of a tutorial like you would find in a computer game. So you don't need to know any of these rules to start playing. You're going to just simply go and you're going to do your setup. So it's going to tell you exactly how to set up. It's going to tell you you're going to draw your 3 characters. You're going to distribute the cards around the board. You're going to draw your chapter events as well as objectives. So it's going to tell you about, okay, the combat die. Combat dice, I should say. I need a sip. I need to grab a sip here. So, I forgot one of the resources here is wood. Duh. Okay. Just toss those down in there. So, the components and everything to this war of mine are excellent. The presentation is really, really well done. Very, very impressive. So, anyway, so you're going to start off, and the journal is telling you, okay, so you're going to do this, you're going to get set up. It's going to tell you, okay, so keep in mind, no one is represented by these citizens here. It's, it's a group effort. And I'm going to say, okay, in the morning, this is what you do. So you're going to draw and resolve the top card from the events deck. So these are your events. So you've got your chapter 1. So there's 3 chapters. And like I said, you're just trying to get to the point where a ceasefire is declared. That is, and survive, and have one character make it to the end. I will point out there's a lot of reading in this game, so that is kind of a turnoff for other people too. But you gotta keep in mind, this is a story. You're gonna have to read things in a story. So it's gonna tell you that you're gonna take your event, you're gonna resolve your event. So for an example, army deals. Okay, well, hey guys, we did that. What's next? You're gonna flip, and it's going to tell you, all right, well, now you get to do your day actions. And you will know how many day actions each character is going to have based upon their state. So for an example, everybody here they're going to start off with a hunger level of 2. So that means they're going to have 2 actions that they may perform during the day. So you may decide, okay, well, I'm going to send... Oops. This is Katya. I'm going to send Katya, and Katya is going to search this heap. And then I'm going to give the shovel to Amelia, and Amelia is going to go dig through this rubble. And then Zalata, or I don't know. I don't know how it's really pronounced. Maybe it's just Lata. You might decide, okay, I'm going to have them come up with a new idea. Okay? So you could add something from the ideas. You'll take 2 cards. And then this will actually be added into your fittings. And that's not something you're going to do right away, because you need food and water. You need food and water, and maybe, hopefully, some way to be able to defend yourself when bad people come trying to do bad things. So you may actually just decide, okay, well, I'm going to have, I got it covered up. I'm going to have Zlata poke around. And you'll roll your black die, and it'll tell you, okay, well, you found whatever. You found some wood, you found components, what have you. Just kind of poking around, because this house is bombed out. So obviously, there's tons of junk components that you can get. So you basically, okay, search the heap. So it's going to tell you, you gain 1 electrical part, 1 water, 3 components. Add these to your storage. So you're going to go and you're going to have this on the side. So you go, okay, so we got components, we got water, you're going to add them to your storage. And then that heap card is removed from play, because now this area of the house has been cleared away. And when you build stuff, you need to be able to put it in open areas of the house for you to be able to use it. So you couldn't put something in here when you've got 2 heap cards. You also have to go and you have to address these cards in order. So for an example, you can't go, oh, I'm going to go see what what's the furniture, what's going on in here. No, you have to go through the closed door first. And before you can get to the closed door, you got to dig through that rubble upstairs. All this is really pretty easy to go through it. And the way, as I mentioned, this is set up, it's just going to tell you right from the beginning. There is no, I got to sit there and study 40 pages of rules before we get to play. And you'll have like a leader, and as you go through the phases, the new person, just pass it around. You pass the book around. You pass the book of scripts around the table, and each person is like, okay, well, then, okay, here we got dusk. So at dusk, everybody needs drink. Everybody needs food. If you have raw food, I'm getting a little too detailed here. Okay, so you need food, otherwise you're going to be hungry. You need water. Later on, you're going to need rest because fatigue will set in. All right, so then in the evening, you have options that you can do with your citizens. So you can have them sleep. So if you have a bed, you can have them sleep in a bed. You can have them sleep on the floor. You have to have somebody on guard duty, because if you don't have somebody guarding, even if they're unarmed, it doesn't matter. You need somebody to be guarding the house. Otherwise, bad things happen. And then you can also go and you can go exploring. Now, exploring is another aspect where you can go and you can send more than one person to do this. So one person's on guard duty, one person could be sleeping on the floor, and one person could go out there to explore, to go out there and scavenge. If you take that approach, highly unlikely you're going to survive. You're probably going to do something like you're going to send a couple of characters out there to see what they can find. And like I said, a big part of the game is just trying to balance keeping these characters alive. They're not going to be happy. They're not going to be whistling zippity-doo-dah. They are just basically barely making it from one day onto the next. So you are going to continue going through. You're going to have your events. Oh, and then the next day, once you've gone through, and you're going to flip to see what's the night raid. So for an example, okay, so the first night, the person on guard duty takes a night raid card. Now, early on, you may not have as many chances for it being a combat encounter, but this is memories. Then you see there's all these different paragraphs. So you're going to go look at, it's going to show the character. It's going to show their misery level. And then, of course, you will resolve that. Then, of course, when you're exploring, as I mentioned before, you're going to take the number of exploration cards as it shows here on the side. So we got 14, 12, 10. And you're going to go through and resolve these as you're going through. So that ends up being the night phase. I mean, there's just all this stuff going on in this game, and a good amount of it is covered in the journal, right? So there we go. Morning, daytime, dusk, evening, and talks about scavenging, talking about the night raid, talking about dawn. So this is when the scavenging party returns. Of course, they're going to gain fatigue because they haven't been sleeping, but you might be able to find some medicine, food. Then you're going to draw a fate card, and you're going to draw your narrative action, which moves the story along. Then there's combat, and combat is pretty simple. So you've got a combat die here, which is gray. This is unarmed. So we've got a lot of blanks here. Then you've got yellow. So yellow is if you got a weapon of some sort, a melee weapon of some sort. And then the red is firearms, where you're going to utilize the firearms. And it's just, you take a hit, you take a wound. So it's a wound level 1. Take 2 hits, it's 2 wounds, it's wound level 2. Simple enough. The combat is very abstract. It's not super tactical. It's not complicated at all. So you're going to continue doing this. And like I said, the journal makes all of this really, really easy. Now, this game is not played very quickly. You can have a game last for hours upon hours. Now, if you don't want to sit down and have an epic game, which there are quite a few people out there who they want to play a game for about an hour, maybe hour and a half, there's actually save sheets where you can quickly jot down some information and put everything away. And then when you decide you're going to play next, you're going to pick up the story from where it left off. You're going to utilize your save sheet. And there's a pad of a few different saves. You've got different scenarios as well. So you got Endless Nights, The Last Day. There is another board on the back of this board with a different setup. So there's a lot of options available. There's a lot of replayability in this game, even though you would think, oh, well, come on. Yeah, granted, there's not a million paragraphs in here. But no, there's a lot of things will change. You got different characters, different locations. So, of course, those locations spur a lot of the choose your own path sort of things. So, got all of that cooking. So, one thing I do have to point out is, as you're playing, because you're being introduced to the rules as you play, you will start to encounter different rules. For an example, and they tend to be in the 100 area. Character skill, frequently asked questions. Board, frequently asked questions. Fittings. All these these gray boxes. Setup, frequently asked questions. Saving the game. So you'll see, and like I said, they're usually early in the book. This is going to be something that some gamers are not going to dig at all, because many people who play board games want everything spelled out. They want to know all of the rules before they jump into the game. And I can understand that. I can seriously understand why people might flip out. Plus, you're sitting here going through this book, and what if you can't find a rule? Okay. And then as you're flipping through the book, it's oh, well, okay, so I find the rule here, but I accidentally started reading part of this other story entry. It happens. That's why I highly, highly recommend that app, because with the app, what you can do is, if it tells you, okay, so you've got, let's say, entry 129 on your card here, and okay, so we're supposed to read that. You just type it into, you just punch those numbers into the app, and it'll bring it up. You can read it off the app. That's cool. I don't mind going through the book to read. That's fine. I have no issue with that. Whoops, as I bang the mic. Sorry, gang. Excuse me. Where the app really comes into play, though, is the rules, the frequently asked questions, because then you've got them all in the app. You can search for them in the app as opposed to going through the book. That's why I can't stress highly enough, if you got a smartphone or a tablet, get the app for the game. It also provides some kind of interesting little, I don't want to say mini games, just different options as far as some of the things, like for an example, passing the noise check, right? So the noise level's so high, you're rolling a die. Well, with the app, it's a little bit different. There's little mini games built in there. Personally, I didn't mess with them. I can see some people would dig them. I just was like, you know what? No, I'll roll the dice. I have no problem with that. So that pretty much is kind of an overview of let's give you an example of combat. We'll take one of these guys here. Okay, so we got the thugs, right? So determine the number of thugs encountered. Roll the black die. 1 to 3, 1. 4 to 7, 2. 8 to 10, 3. And draw their tokens. So, as I put everything on top of this, and now I gotta move it again. Told you. I don't have a whole lot of room, so I got everything spread all over. So you're gonna have these tokens here that have the question marks, and you're just gonna flip it over, and it's gonna say like A. And you want to make sure that you kind of shuffle those around a little bit in there and that they're hidden. So it's going to tell you, okay, so how many thugs attack, or, how many enemies attack? What are they armed with? So for an example, it says, okay, so draw their tokens. Thugs are armed with A, a knife, B, a pistol, C, an assault rifle. Combat begins automatically. You may try to stop the fight, or if you defeat the enemies. Afterwards, shuffle this card back into the residence deck, so you can run across the thugs. And so that's another reason why you're going to be sending the people out to these locations. Now, I should show you there are tons and tons of items, and you're supposed to kind of sort this out according to the rules. So you got your yellow tokens in here, you've got your red tokens in here, you've got your green in here, you've got gray over here. So yellow tends to be medicine, bandages, things like that. Green tends to be food items, but there's booze, cigarettes, things like that. Gray items tend to be useful items. So the saw blade, there's books, and broken guitar. Because remember, you've got the one character who, if she's got a guitar, life is a little brighter for folks. Then you've got some various different counters here, as well as the other miniatures. Here we've got the water and the components, and the wood should be in there. Forgot to take it out of the bag. Then we've got the different states here and here. Man, I'm telling you, there is so much to this game but it's not overwhelming. It's not overwhelming because so much of it is based upon the decisions you're going to make. So anyway, one last thing I wanted to say too is that when you send people out, if you take a look at the bottom right here, right there, it's going to tell you how much stuff they can carry. Now, some items don't really take up weight. Some items are heavier, and they do. So when you send people out to scavenge and you find different stuff, a lot of times you aren't going to be able to carry everything back. So that's important to keep in mind as well. All right, so that, for the most part, is what you're looking at as far as kind of an overview of the game. Like I said, I wasn't going to go through like an entire playthrough or playthrough around or anything like that. So that brings me to, what are my thoughts overall about this War of Mine, the board game? So let me grab a sip here. Okay. So I have to say that this is certainly not going to be everybody's cup of tea. Certainly will not be, especially for gamers who don't like to be depressed. Well, I don't want to say it. Nobody likes being depressed. Gamers who are not going to be able to handle the fact that there is a lot of misery and sorrow and tragedy in this game. And that reflects what people would go through, probably. And I'm sure that many of the entries in the book of scripts are based on real encounters and real experiences that people who have lived in war-torn cities have dealt with. So it can be, and I'll be the first to say, there was a member of the gang who, as we started playing, they were like, no, this just, I'm not liking this. I'm not enjoying this. And I can understand that. And it's not sort of like I sat there going, what's wrong with you? No, I can I can understand that. So if you yourself or people you know aren't going to be able to handle the fact that this is not going to probably end happily, and if it does, you're going to be like, wow, I mean, that was just insane. If people can't handle that, then definitely don't get it. If you are a person who has to have all the rules laid out in front of you and every case point is explained, this is not going to be the sort of game for you either, because there are aspects to the game itself, rules-wise, that are not black and white, that the designers intentionally have left up to the whims of the players themselves, that the players can kind of tailor how they approach the game in certain aspects. Some people will hate that. It's like, what? I got to make up the rules? Nah, no way. So yeah, so there's that. There's the fact that you'll have folks who aren't going to dig that either. Now, who do I think? Now, personally, I think this is a phenomenal game, but it's not necessarily a game that is going to get a lot of time off my shelf. And I'll kind of get to that in a sec, but I think that folks out there who can handle the subject matter and who have experience with role-playing games are probably going to get the most out of this game. And that is because, for the most part, many role-playing games are a community effort where the group is creating the story. And many times, the group consensus decides what happens, good or bad, whatever, as far as moving the story along. Gamers like that are not going to have any sort of issue where it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, it's up to us to decide. Okay. So, people who are looking for something that's going to really create a story, although as tragic as that story may turn out to be, will really, really appreciate this War of Mine. The entries in the book of scripts are really well written, very nicely presented. I thought that was, I mean, that's really the big selling point of this game. It are the stories that it's going to create. So I really, as I started to say, I really, really think that this is an excellent experience. Let me put it that way. Because in a lot of ways, you don't necessarily play this War of Mine, but you experience this War of Mine. And some people might have a hard time with that. And that's another reason why I'm kind of saying that people who have some sort of familiarity with role-playing games, who enjoy various different role-playing games, are going to get much more out of this than, say, someone who normally is playing something from like AEG or Calliope or lighter fare. I mean, if your gamers that you hang out with play all lighter, mid-weight games, I'm going to tell you, don't even consider this War of Mine. But yes, I would say this is more of an experience, and not to sound hackneyed or weird, but a lot of people realize that games can be used as teaching tools. My good friend John Welsh, some of his designs for Victory Point Games have been historical, and he is a history teacher, and he has used his own games in his classroom. So we do understand games can be utilized educationally, and that is how I kind of look at this War of Mine. It really brings home the horrors of war from the point of view of non-combatants. And I mean, you know, I've read tons of history over the decades. I'm pretty well versed in a lot of things historically, and there were things in this game that I was just like, wow. You know, like I said to open up the review, I'm an American. Yeah, I can't possibly imagine some country I can't imagine North Korea invading the United States and the city of Chicago is under siege. Can't fathom it. Playing this war of mine, I can sort of understand some aspects of what it would be like to live in that sort of situation. So that's why I have to say that it's more of an experience than a game, maybe. Yeah, I mean, I really recommend this highly. I really, really do. As long as you know what you're getting into. I would not want to be sitting there going, okay, well, yeah, huge thumbs up. You got to pick this up. And then suddenly I get an email from somebody saying that, hey, you know, I sat down with my 12-year-olds, my 12-year-old twins. I'd be like, oh my gosh, no way. So on a numerical scale, I did ding it a little bit because, yeah, okay, I thought maybe it was a little bit of a cheat for the designers to say, oh, well, you know, whatever your group decides on. I didn't ding it too hard, though. I think the component quality is excellent. The entries in the book of scripts, the kind of, I don't want to say create your own adventure because it's not an adventure per se. Really, really well done. I give this War of Mine. See, I started giving you the score. I give this War of Mine, the board game, a very, very solid 9 out of 10. And like I said, with the right group, it is an experience. And as I said before, you know, it's an experience. It's not necessarily something you might want to experience a lot. And I could almost sum it up like, for an example, a movie that always stood out to me is Leaving Las Vegas. Okay, people won Academy Awards, all this other stuff. And the acting is really powerful in Leaving Las Vegas. And Leaving Las Vegas really does leave you with an imprint on your mind after seeing it. Does that necessarily mean that you want to watch it again? Or 5 times or 10 times? I don't know. Personally, I thought watching Leaving Las Vegas was an experience that I appreciated, that I went through. I appreciated the great acting, but as a whole, it wasn't something that I wanted to go and say, oh, well, it's Tuesday, it's time to watch Leaving Las Vegas again. So there you have it. That is what I think of this War of Mine. Big, big thumbs up with some disclaimers there for the crowd that it'll be for. Anyway, if you're wondering what I've got cooking for the rest of the week, there's only a couple of days left. So on Thursday, tomorrow, So tomorrow I will be reviewing Rise of the Drow from Adventure Week Games. And then on Friday, for Family Fun Friday, yeah, talk about a complete change of topic, right? I am going to unbox Dance of the Fireflies from Backspindle Games and Ninja Division. So we're gonna, looks nice, and I hear it's nice and relaxing, and far, far different than this War of Mine. Anyway, when you're not watching the Daily Dope, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. Come on, by now you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I am Jeff McAleer. I will be back tomorrow. And until then, enjoy your hump day.